All right, now we're going to talk about the playoffs, and we talked during the week. Marty and I did about how we wanted to approach this because we know who's in the playoffs, and so do you by now, just from listening to us, or you probably knew before you even heard this podcast. What we don't know is who's going to be ranked where. So we know there's 11 teams that are going to be in the Class 3 playoffs. We know that the top 5 in the final rankings, based on the index system that the DIAA uses, is going to determine who those 5 teams are. So it might be a team that you're not expecting or you would think would be in there because they have more wins than a team below them, but then all of a sudden it gets flip-flopped because of their strength of schedule. Because again, in Class 3, even though every team could play every other team and make this much, much more simple, they've chosen not to, at least during this 2-year process and reevaluation. So we'll see what happens after the 2 years. But so what we're going to do is we're going to go through class by class, and we're going to tell you who our Cinderella pick is. And so in Class 3, it's obvious, and it's going to be a shame if Middletown and Sally's are not in the state championship game. And as Marty pointed out to me before we got on the air, not pointed out, but we were talking about, they could be ranked 1 and 3 in the index system and see each other in the semifinal. And that would be a shame. And that would be the first argument for the committee going forward to have an opportunity that, despite what the index says, to set it up so that clearly, and there's not one coach in Class 3 who will tell you that they are not the 2 best teams in Class 3. Doesn't mean they're going to win a state championship, but it should be set up. The playoffs should be set up for the 2 of them to have an opportunity to get to the state championship game and square off against each other. So what Marty and I are going to pick in Class 3 is which team that we think is going to advance past the first round and win in the second round if they're not playing Middletown or Smyrna. Neither one of us thinks Middletown and Smyrna is going to get beat in the second round. And so we're not even going to pretend that. But this is if you advance to the second round and you play one of the other teams. And so I'm going to start, I think, and we're going to base it on who we think the buys are going to be. I think the buys are going to be Middletown, Smyrna, Sally's, St. George's, and Dover. And so the team I'm going to select is going to be the team that I think can beat Sally's, St. George's, or Dover in the second round. And that team is going to be Appoquinimink. And I'm picking Appoquinimink. Sure, you can call it a homer pick, and it is a little bit of a homer pick. But I've seen almost every one of their games this year. If they played at home, I was there. If they played away, I was watching on YouTube or 302 Sports Live or whatever, Delaware Sports Live, and NFHS Network, one of those networks. And so I've seen Appoquinimink. I've seen them play great, and I've seen them struggle. And so if they play great in that second round, I think they have a shot to beat South, St. George's, or Dover. They'll stay in the game, and then who knows what can happen at the end. So my pick in Class 3, my Cinderella team to not only get past round 1, but to possibly get past round 2 is Appoquinimink. Marty?
And I'm going to go a little different direction. I actually went with Dover. They're going to be right on the cusp of that bubble buy situation. I couldn't get there with Appo. They're Jekyll and Hyde act. This is a team that beat Cesar Rodney 6-0 in the beginning of the season. It's hard to pick that team for me, although Coach Timpson's done a really nice job there. But I'm going to go with Dover. And this is part of the reason is why Appo, by the way, beat Dover this season.
Yep.
So that's a real feather in their cap. It was a home game for Appoquinimink. It was 34-28. But I just think Coach Knapp, and I really think that this past week against Sally's is going to wake this team up. He's done a phenomenal job of getting his team ready to play. Clearly, they were ready to play on Friday night against Sally's, and then in the second half, things just fell apart. But that was more, based on Sally's offense and their proficiency and what they were able to do. But I really think Dover is a team. And again, I'm not saying they could beat Smyrna or Middletown, but I do think, given the right circumstances, they could give those teams a game. So I think if Dover advances to the semis, which I think they will, I think that they're going to be a potential tough out for whoever draws them. And then part of it is, again, Chip Knapp and bringing that college experience, a little bit of different type of experience than we see from most Delaware high school coaches. I think that may play a big difference in the playoffs.
You know, it's going to be interesting, Marty. I'm just looking at where everybody stands, because you have Dover not in the bye bubble. I have them in the bye bubble. And so that's going to be a big game for Dover this week, and it's going to be a big game for Appoquinimink this week, because if Dover loses, and Appoquinimink wins over Sally's, where they'll get some bonus points, there is a chance that Appoquinimink will be in that by bubble. All right, let's go to Class 2. The district winners are DMA, Archmere, and Woodbridge. So neither one of us was allowed to pick those three. This is the pick that we think, and really in both these next two classes, I don't think there's any foregone conclusion who the best two teams are. Maybe in Class 1, but not in Class 2. So this would be a pick that I would pick to possibly win the state championship. But I'm going to let you go first, Marty.
I'm going to go. I actually had two teams here. The first one I'll go with is Joey Wright's Spartans of St. Mark's. They have really quietly put together a 7-3 season. Yeah, they've had a few, loss here and there, but they lost to Archmere and Woodbridge by 11 total points. They're not getting blown out, and I think that team just continues to look good. When the few times, I've seen 3 of their games on YouTube, and they look pretty impressive. They have a diversified offense. They've got a really opportunistic defense. So for me, the Spartans of St. Mark's under former St. Elizabeth's head coach for one season, Joey Wright. That's right. Yeah, I think St. Mark's has a chance to make some noise in the 2A playoffs, so they'd be my first pick.
All right, I have them as my second pick. They would have been my second pick, but my first pick is Howard, and I've said this all along. I'm not going to root against. Never going to root against anybody, really. I'm not going to vote against Dan Ritter, two-time defending state champion. Somehow he gets his players to step up and play for them. They lost their best offensive player last year, transferred to Middletown. They're still in the playoffs. And so I'm not going to count Howard out until they're out. And I'll tell you right now, I guarantee if you talk to the other 11 coaches that are in the playoffs, one of the teams they do not want to see in any round is Howard. So Marty goes with St. Mark's. I go with Howard as our Cinderella picks in Class 2. Let's move to Class 1. St. Elizabeth. Sorry, Marty, you can't pick them because they're the District 1 winners. Laurel, the District 2. This may be a situation, if it wasn't that close game for Indian River High School and Laurel this past weekend, Marty, if Laurel had blown Indian River out, I would have said in Class 1, we have the same as we have in Class 3. The two teams that belong in the state championship are St. E's and Laurel, but Indian River going to overtime with them. They're my Cinderella pick. I think an easy Cinderella pick when you look at Class 1, given the other teams that are there. Marty, your thoughts?
Mine's St. Andrews. They've had a really good season. The quarterback, Mike Lilly, the receiver, Brandon Graves, explosive offense. He was totally shut down yesterday, averaging 28 points a game. I think they could make some noise. That their problems are going to come defensively. I think they're not going to win the whole thing. I mean, that's pretty clear. Just because I don't think defensively they can hold some of these teams like St. Elizabeth's, obviously, and Laurel. So I think it's going to be interesting. But I do think that St. Andrews can make some noise. I think they could throw a scare into somebody.
All right, those are our Cinderella picks for the Class 3 playoffs. Not allowed to pick any of the district winners going into it. So we'll see what happens. One of the exciting things about this new system is there's going to be a lot of playoff games to keep an eye on, and we'll be right here with you along for the ride.